America's policy of banning gay people from serving in our military is having a hard couple of years. At the heart of its problems, a man gets elected president in 2008 who says he is committed to getting rid of the policy.
This year, I will work with Congress and our military to finally repeal the law that denies gay Americans the right to serve the country they love because of who they are.
President Obama is elected. More trouble for Don't Ask, Don't Tell as the nation also elects big Democratic majorities in the House and in the Senate. In the House, an Iraq War veteran, a Blue Dog Democrat named Patrick Murphy, takes on the issue and says he's going to lobby every single member of the House of Representatives personally until he's got the votes to get the policy repealed. Congressman Murphy does it in the House. The House votes to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. In the Senate, the vote to repeal it is stopped only by Republicans filibustering the funding of the entire Pentagon. Because of that filibuster, as it stands now, Pentagon spending is not authorized by the United States Congress for the first time in 48 years. That seems rather unsustainable. In the military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Defense Secretary have both said they are against the policy. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs putting his opposition in passionate and personal terms.
It does go to, again, a sort of a fundamental principle with me, which is everybody counts. And part of the struggle back to the institutional integrity aspect of this.
Well, I know.
And putting individuals in a position that every single day they wonder whether today's going to be the day, and devaluing them in that regard just is inconsistent with us as an institution. I have served with homosexuals since 1968. Senator McCain spoke to that in his statement. Everybody in the military has, and we understand that. So it is a number of things which cumulatively, for me personally, get me to this position. Senator Sessions, for me, this is not about command influence. This is about leadership, and I take that very seriously.
The Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy has had a hard couple of years because of all that happening in Washington. But perhaps a bigger reason America's policy of banning gay people from the military is having a hard couple of years is because the country keeps meeting these honorable and incredibly impressive, dedicated Americans in uniform who the policy says must be fired from military service. They are the faces of the policy. They are activists against the policy, and in some cases, they are plaintiffs in lawsuits challenging the policy. Today, another landmark blow against Don't Ask, Don't Tell in a lawsuit brought by the Log Cabin Republicans, a gay group within the GOP. A permanent injunction against the policy was today issued by a California federal judge. Now, this is not an unexpected development in this case, but it is a big deal. Now, within 60 days, the Justice Department must decide whether or not to appeal. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Even though the Obama administration is technically on record against Don't Ask, Don't Tell, they could in fact appeal this ruling, if only for procedural reasons. That said, they definitely got political cover for letting this thing go if they decide to. Almost 70 Democrats in the House asked the Obama administration to not appeal the ruling, to just let the judge strike down the policy back in September. Today, 21 senators asked again that the Obama administration let this judge's ruling stand. And in what seems like an important development, a Pentagon official gave a comment to NBC News tonight that suggests the possibility that the military may, as a practical matter, just stop implementing the policy now. Quote, "It's important to point out that today's federal court order comes less than 2 months before the Pentagon is to provide Secretary of Defense Robert Gates with a plan on how, not if, but how, to implement the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military." Joining us now to help us understand what that might mean is Jim Miklaszewski, NBC's chief Pentagon correspondent. Mick, really appreciate your help with this. Thank you.
You bet, Rachel.
So what is the reaction at the Pentagon today, in civilian and in military circles, to today's ruling? How are they greeting this?
Well, it's actually pretty surprising that officials here at the Pentagon, both military and civilian, and even over at the Justice Department, appear to have been caught flat-footed by this ruling and court order issued today out there in California. I can tell you, however, that the Pentagon has pretty much kicked this over to the Justice Department for the time being, saying only that they would leave any remarks or decisions about any further legal litigation up to the Justice Department. The Justice Department, for its part, simply said no comment as to whether they, in fact, would appeal this decision.
And the Justice Department being in charge of the litigation side of this makes sense. Of course, the Pentagon in charge of the implementation side of this. And one of the sort of sleeper issues as this policy is debated is that Pentagon enforcement of Don't Ask, Don't Tell seems to have really slowed down since the Obama administration has been in power. What are the sort of considerations the Pentagon needs to make about whether or not to effectively halt the enforcement of this policy even before it's repealed?
Well, the reality is that enforcement of Don't Ask, Don't Tell has pretty much come to a halt already. And it was because of Secretary Robert Gates, Defense Secretary Robert Gates' decision to enforce what he called a more humane method of enforcing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He, for example, is against the involuntary outing of gays or lesbians in the military and then forcing them out of the service under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And because he decided on his own, and he has the authority to do that, to lift that provision or to ease enforcement of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Don't Ask, Don't Tell enforcement has pretty much come to a halt for the time being. Nevertheless, Secretary Gates has said he and the Pentagon are still obliged to follow the law and enforce Don't Ask, Don't Tell, at least for the time being. But it's interesting that in this court ruling today, the judge gave the Justice Department, the federal government, the Obama administration, 60 days in which to file this appeal. And if you look at the clock, that means the midterm elections will be over, a lame duck session in which Democrats promise to again bring up the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell will already be in session and may be near completion. And of course, that 60-day deadline will also be beyond the time when Secretary Gates set the deadline for the package, the report from the military on not how to implement Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but or rather how to, rather than if to implement Don't Ask, Don't Tell, seemingly putting it on a road to inevitability. Yet, Pentagon officials will tell you there are all sorts of roadblocks ahead, particularly up in Congress, if the Republicans should seize control of either or both of the houses up there in the Capitol Hill.
And certainly, even with enforcement stalled, still a sort of Damocles hanging over the head of any gay service personnel right now, wondering how this is all going to end. At this point, the Obama administration really having to decide whether to finalize this thing or whether to let it continue to peter out through the political process. This is turning out to be not at all the way anyone expected this to end, I think.
And Rachel, some officials here at the Pentagon believe that, you know, it wouldn't be advisable for any gay or lesbian in the military to walk out on the front steps of their barrack tonight and openly declare their sexual preference. But at the same time, you get a sense that they feel that the gays and lesbians now in the military should be less threatened over the prospect of being forced out of the military anytime soon in the foreseeable future under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
A very important point. Jim Miklaszewski, NBC's chief Pentagon correspondent. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Mick. Really appreciate it.
Okay, Rachel.